Hi and welcome to the ICD weekly public discussion. I'd like to make a special thanks this week to President Constantinescu, former President of Romania, who's kindly joined us for the discussion today. He's also one of the ICD advisory board members, so we're very lucky to have him with us today. This is the second week of our special topic into the collapse of capitalism, ? Last week we spoke about the right to protest and whether it was violent antagonism or democratic right. We're extending the capitalism theme this week. We're going to be talking about the Eurozone crisis. So as this is the second week of discussions on the potential collapse of capitalism, I'm really hoping to inspire some debate and get some discussion going.
With me now in the studio is Dr. Henning Mayer, who's a senior visiting fellow at the London School of Economics. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
This is still unravelling, isn't it? We don't know where the end of this is.
No, I mean, as Manuel Barroso said, it's entering a new phase. The meeting that we had last month, on the 21st of July, that supposedly put a stop to it actually hasn't. So we're still seeing the situation unravelling.
It's not overdoing it, is it, to use the word crisis?
No, certainly not. I mean, it's a crisis of many different drivers, I would have to add. I mean, to my mind, one of the key problems is that there is no expectation of growth anywhere really in the so-called crisis countries. Now, without generating any economic growth, it's very difficult to see any measure that could turn that trend around. So growth seems to me pivotal, but nobody's talking about it.
And you have the market reaction today to all of that about the state of, and just look at the way that stock prices are tumbling.
Yes, I mean, you have factors like the European Financial Stability Facility, whether the structure is effective, whether the size is big enough to deal with Spain and Italy, almost certainly not. There's a question about the European Central Bank. Today has started again some bond buyback schemes, but it's only limited for 6 months. Will it eventually become some sort of lender of last resort? There's a question about the private sector involvement in all of this, and there's obviously the political question as well.
Yeah, but it looks like that so far the efforts of policymakers have failed to make a substantial difference in terms of reassuring people.
Yes, absolutely. That's the political problem that I was referring to. European policymakers have been behind the curve since the beginning. It was very clear that they are acting to unfolding events rather than leading from the front, and that's obviously a kind of attitude that markets tend to punish.
And let's just talk about the scale of this, because it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to bail out a small economy like Ireland or Greece. Italy's a member of the G8. I mean, Italy's a huge economy.
Yes, it's absolutely massive, and that's why, according to some calculations, the size of the facility should at least quadruple in order to deal with this. So but it's not just about initial or individual mechanisms. It's about a whole package that would actually reinstitute confidence, and that has to be the aim.
And Henning, I know that you're German, and
yes.
I just kind of it all seems to go back to, well, will the Germans bail out this one, that one? I mean, what is going to be the view of German citizens who might well see their taxes go up sharply to pay for this?
Well, the whole crisis was missold in Germany from the very beginning onwards. I mean, there was a discussion amongst citizens that they were effectively financing early retirement in Greece. That obviously was not the case. There were credit lines that basically bailed out the bondholders, and the population in Greece and other places were subject to austerity. So there was a dishonesty in the political debate in Germany to start with, and I personally blame Angela Merkel for not leading from the front. I mean, she was one of the political leaders you would have expected to take a lead, and she hasn't. So hopefully that changes.
Okay, Henning Mayer, thank you so much indeed for coming in to talk to us.
Just based on the theme of the video, we do have a house belief this week. This has been created so that we can create some kind of discussion around the topic of the Eurozone crisis. So our house belief is that the Eurozone crisis will lead to a divide within Europe. So just to elaborate on that slightly, current debates over where the current Eurozone crisis will lead at the moment include discussions of a treaty reform, which could lead to a two-tier Europe. So within that two-tier Europe, we would have a core of the central Eurozone members, and the periphery would include countries like UK, Denmark, and Eastern European countries. This essentially has been described as a potential way to save the euro, and also create some kind of economic governance at a central level within the EU. But equally, Nick Clegg described this as creating greater divisions within Europe that have taken years to actually pull down and demolish. And in the view of a united Europe, we're now re-establishing divisions. So I'd like to open the discussions on that point. Does anybody think that the euro is worth saving to the extent that we should divide Europe again? Or do you have any general points on the role of the EU in the Eurozone crisis at the moment?
Well, I mean, you can see that Europe has effectively been divided into two tiers since Maastricht, when you had a euro-using core and a non-euro-using periphery. Sometimes this was through choice, and sometimes certain states were not able to join the euro. But this core has grown, obviously, with Estonia being the latest addition to the euro-using states. This combined, for example, with the rise of Euroscepticism in the United Kingdom and Denmark, as well as a crisis, a debt crisis among certain euro-using states, has meant there's been a massive polarization of the member states of the European Union. So to this extent, Europe's in fact has encountered a crisis far deeper than the Eurosclerosis of the 70s or of the constitutional crisis of 2005. But because this is an economic crisis, member states of the Eurozone are now seeing that they might have to pull together even stronger and in the end launch sort of fiscal and economic governance. So what we're seeing out of this crisis that's sold to many of us as the potential breakup of the Eurozone or an existential crisis to the EU could in fact lead to a new wave, a fresh wave of European integration over this core of Euro-using Schengen member states. And even though this will be detrimental to the EU in terms of not all states will be equally integrated, I think it's certainly a very good outcome if European integration can in fact be strengthened by this current crisis. That was my point.
I would like to come back on the idea of or Europe already being divided. Well, of course, there's European states, which members of the European Union, which are using the euro, and others which are not using it. In the debate on the eurozone, there have been voices, and I can now think of a French member of parliament saying that those who are not using it as a state currency should not really mingle in the debate and should not really have a point, because this is kind of a house problem, and this is among the European states which are using it. I think that point is completely false, because of a number of arguments. First of all, according to Copenhagen criteria, all member states, except for those who have opted out, Denmark and UK, are supposed to at one point have the euro. So if they're going to have a euro which is weak or non-existent, that changes a bit the situation. So of course they have a say even at this point. And then on the other hand, I think maybe this is not clear enough for people who come from Western European countries which have been using the euro for a very long time. But in new member states, the euro is by no means a strange currency like, I don't know, the dollar or the yen, or people express rent prices in euros. People pay in euros, not in stores, but they definitely have a daily use of the euro. And the fact that the euro fluctuates, or the fact that the euro might break apart, affects their lives almost just as much as it affects the lives of people here or in France. So I think that it's wrong to see that there are people inside, or there are states inside the eurozone who have to decide, and there are others who have to just stand and look.
Really agree with that point. I think it's fantastic. I think that member states obliged to join the Eurozone have a right to be part of Eurozone finance meetings. And I think it's also a massive attribute of the Schengen zone that countries in the Union can opt out. So the UK, for example, I mean, I'd rather we didn't, but we do. But that countries such as Norway and Switzerland can. So in this way of retaining a flexible system in these processes of European integration, then we'll see that bridges are built between sort of this core and this periphery. And I just think that was very well said.
I do agree with my colleagues. I think that all the members of the European Union should have like an opinion about what's happening with the currency. We don't have to forget the fact about when a state becomes a member of the European Union, they have to accomplish certain criteria called the Maastricht criteria. So each state, when the moment it becomes the member, has that criteria. But in times, not all the members were able to maintain that criteria at the levels they were asked. So I think it's very important to all the states, even those who are not using euro as a currency, to have an opinion. For example, in my country, as my colleague Ioana said, we are affected in Romania by the currency, by euro, because all the loans from the banks that people take are in euros. So each fluctuation of the currency is affecting the way that people pay back their loans. This is one reason why I consider that all members, even the ones who are not using euro at the moment as a currency, should have an opinion. On the other point, I will have to show that the European Union is really struggling with the taxation. They really try to make the taxation equal in all the states, but this is not possible. Just have a look at the VAT. It's different in each country. In Germany it's 25%, in Romania it's less. So this is almost impossible. It's impossible to compare states at this to make this taxation level equal. So I think this is the reason why all states should have an opinion, because it's important to understand that they are not equal economically, but let's say so, they are equally affected. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I think what we're discussing here is actually one possible outcome of a number of outcomes that could come about as a result of the current Eurozone crisis. And in fact, this is necessarily not a particularly bad outcome. At least the Eurozone is intact, albeit in a very changed way to how it is currently. But I think there are many alternatives that are currently on the cards that are just not being assessed under this this title. I mean, for example, if Greece was to renege on its debts and other countries were to go down too, which is a very real possibility. The likes of the Italian economy and the Spanish economy are extremely fragile. We could be facing a far, far greater question than a simple split in the Eurozone. We could be facing an entire break-up and the collapse of the euro as a currency in itself. And that's my point.
Somebody?
Do you think that we're facing a situation where we already have divisions within the Eurozone or between the Eurozone and the rest of the EU? A lot of people have already mentioned the fact that there's a little equality between a lot of the member states anyway. Are we already seeing a process of division without it being actually institutionalized?
I wouldn't say we're experiencing a actual division. We actually never had a real integration to speak of. We are just getting aware of this fact that we haven't learned to work together on an economic basis and on perhaps even on a cultural basis. We are just not, we haven't fought hard enough yet.
Does anyone agree or disagree? Yep.
In my opinion, this question is the reflect of the society today. The Eurozone crisis will lead to a divided Europe. We always speak about division, fights, and we don't speak about how we can face it, the challenges that we have to face and how we can do it, and how the European country, yes, they are divided, they have a lot to do to be united, but still, like, what are the solutions for them to face the euro crisis and what they can do to work together to make the euro stronger? And even if there is no growth in Europe right now, they need to put on the table that they are working on it and not that they are fighting, because all the time that what we hear is that they are fighting, and what we need to hear is that they are working together. So maybe if someone has an opinion on this and what they are doing right now, because in the media all that we can hear is that they are fighting. And I want to hear something else.
I think what we also have to keep in mind or to look at is that when we talk about this, our European crisis and the division of Europe, there's also another important word, and that is solidarity. Because in the end, I think we sit here and we try to find solutions together. Germany actually is willing to pay. Banks are actually reducing loans and things like that. So we are working on this problem together. And Europe, this crisis does not only show that there's divisions within Europe, but also that how interconnected we all are. The crisis affects everyone. And I think also for the future, we should still keep in mind we have to work together. That's what we have to do. And we should be careful with using terms like division or separation or we and they and included and excluded, just because by using this terminology, we might create a division which we don't want. Thank you.
I also want to add up to what Maria just said. It's not only that we see them being the European leaders fighting all the time. It's, I think, to a large extent also that we don't see them being courageous enough in what they put on the table. The European Council a week ago, I think on the 23rd of October on a Saturday, met to discuss the Euro crisis. And 2 days before that, Mr. Barroso went in the media and said no groundbreaking decision should be expected of this council. So if you even do it before the council actually takes place, how can you expect people to believe in the European project and to believe these leaders can come up with solutions? Because of course they don't want to raise too much expectations, but people live from expectations. People have to believe in this currency, which is much more than a currency. It is a symbol, and I think more courageous decision making, even if it's tinted as being a bit utopian, is more than welcome now, because we don't have any of these. Everything is very irrationalist, very pessimistic, and nobody wants to take responsibility for any of the decision because it's a difficult crisis. Well, Europe needs leadership in this crisis, and we can definitely see that it's lacking now, and courage is lacking also.
Yeah, just to come back to Bastian's point, and this is perhaps playing devil's advocate a little bit, but just it's hard really to talk about solidarity, I think, for a lot of people, especially from the UK and other skeptical countries as well, because this crisis was predicted a long, long time ago. There's no precedent in history ever for monetary union working without there being fiscal union. So this was, for a lot of people, completely predictable, and for them to be asked for help and for advice and for solidarity when these warnings were made a long, long, long time ago, I think I can at least understand why some countries now are, again, a little bit skeptical about the idea of solidarity. Just to play a devil's advocate, perhaps a little bit, provoke a bit of discussion a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
In response to Maria's point and a couple of others, I think there is so much fighting going on rather than direct leadership in the Eurozone at the moment, because as soon as a crisis comes along, all we see is states revert to their own state interests. They're not working together as a union, they're much more concerned about individual states themselves. And I suppose that shows the weakness of the Eurozone itself and of the European Union as a whole. It's not something that states have really bought into so much so that they're willing to protect it over their own individual interests.
First thing that we resort to once we've hit some financial difficulty, albeit very serious, is division. And you can't have a union just in the good times and the prosperous times. We have to be able to work together when we are going through economic difficulties in order to, classify ourselves as a homogenous entity. It's impossible to call yourself a union just because it's easy to cooperate together when we're going through good times independently in domestic affairs as well. So, any thoughts on that?
I think that when we've had 2 bailouts to Greece, a bailout to Portugal, and to Ireland, I think it's very difficult to say that people have bought into an idea in a currency and they're not willing to back it up. I mean, I think that we are seeing member state governments really sort of pump. I think it goes back to what Bastian said, really, that and we talk about fights and conflict, but really countries such as Germany have been willing, albeit begrudgingly, to step in and do this. And I think even though it's always nerve-wracking when it's our currency and the stakes are so high, but what we are seeing is people stepping in and really fighting to save the currency. And the fact that this crisis has been going on for over a year and we still have the euro, I think is, to an extent, well, not an encouraging sign, but it's not game over from the pro-European Brit anyway.
I was just going to add something too. This discussion can in many ways be a very abstract thing in the sense, the politicians or the political elites or Brussels. I just wanted to pose the question to all of you here, all of us as young leaders. What role do we have? I'm wondering what responsibilities do we see for ourselves as citizens, many of us, of the regional situation of Europe we're taking part in. Do we also have a role? Or is it just a matter of putting in our votes and that's it? What role do you all see for civil society or us as young leaders? I'll just pose that as a question. And there's a response over there.
I'd like to add something, which goes along to Mark's remark, that I think much too long Europe was a stage of politicians and very much away from citizens of Europe. So many of the usual, in parentheses, citizens don't have the feeling of belonging to each other. And since this is so, and they only hear so many critics about what is going on in Brussels or in Strasbourg, and all, for instance, all this touring around from Brussels to Strasbourg for a lot of money for, I don't know, every 2 weeks or so. I don't know exactly. So for many people, Europe is very abstract. We do have a common currency, and we are allowed to travel and to live where we want to. But I think it's not a real common feeling of we belong to Europe, and we all should be work for this idea and realize what kind of advantages it brings for everybody, or it could at least.
Maybe for many people, Europe is an abstract concept, but for all of us here, it's not abstract because we are used to travel, we are used to meet other people from other countries. So maybe the economic level and the political level of Europe is not so close to us, and we don't know how to have an impact on it, because it's really difficult to act like citizens and say, I want an economic policy to be fair and good for everyone. And the economic policy of Europe is taking into account a lot of interest and a lot of hidden interest that we don't know. And being part of it, being part of this level, it means that they will give us all the information, and that they will give us a space where we can express ourselves and where we can really have an opinion on this. So I don't know what you're thinking about this, but I think it's really hard to have an impact on the European policy, especially in economy.
It's exactly what I mean. It's
but
far away from.
Yeah, but what he said, like, what is our role? It's really difficult to define it. What can we do really to be together and to speak about it, or to have a meeting with the European Council? I don't know. I really don't know. But at least we can try to work on our opinion and try to discuss with each other, and at the end maybe come up with something. But it will take time, I think, and by this time I don't know what will happen with Europe.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we have to do. We have to inform ourselves. We have to be aware of the problems which are going on and understand the situation a little bit better. Because if you're just passive and you don't know anything about the crisis, you know, okay, there's a crisis going on, but you have no idea about economics, you should still try to read things and understand at least the basics, so you know what's going on. And also, if you are in a discussion like this today, I saw a lot of my fellow workers, they read articles about the crisis and watched a video from like economic leaders to inform themselves, and I think this is important. And then we can use this knowledge to talk to more people, spread the knowledge, and also our opinion on that. If you think the banks are unjust, you should base it on some ideas why they are unjust. And if we spread these ideas, or if we start, for example, a news blog or something like that, we can reach quite a lot of people. And if everyone does a little bit, not instantly, but over time, we can just influence people. And I think we should not think we can't change anything. Maybe directly we can't change anything, but like with the Occupy movement, you see just, even if it has no direct impact, the politicians see, okay, something is going wrong. And then those who are in charge and those who have the specific knowledge, like you said, who know all the hidden interests, they should then act. But they have to see, okay, there's like the average citizen is like not satisfied with the situation right now.
I think in response to Mark's comment that also I think with economic problems it's much more difficult to feel engaged and to feel like we have some role that we can play because so much of economics is played out on a level way above our heads and with where we have very little layman's understanding of it. I think with political issues it's perhaps much easier to have an opinion and to get involved. However, I think with the frustration. I mean, last week we were talking about the Occupy movements a lot, and I think the frustration that's displayed in that is a frustration of powerlessness, really, because even many people feel that not only do we not have much ability to take part in or to influence this, but neither necessarily do our votes if everything is being carried out by bankers and not by politicians.
I think reverting to what Bastian said also, a very simple way to think about what the euro actually is or what the euro means for us, and this can be done also if you have zero economic knowledge, is to think about how it was before we had it, or to think about how it is when you go to a country and you have to exchange and then your prices look funny and you don't know how much you pay actually for something, and you're completely lost in a shop and you're all the time trying to think in your mind, what is actually this in my state currency? So if you go to Hungary or to Romania or to the UK, you will find this, and you will find it's not very comfortable. We tend to very easily forget what the euro has benefited, and I'm not talking about trade or about economic growth and so on, which might be abstract notions. I'm talking about day-to-day interaction among European states and how we can actually go about with the same coin in our pocket.
Yeah, I'd like to get back to your comment on that the Occupy movement was very greatly fueled by frustration over not being able to interact with the economic system. With the frustration and about the inability to interact, I'd say it's true, but it's more true that the frustration stems from not being able to interact with those people who got away unscathed for ruining our economy.
Like in our trying to answer Mark's question, can we do something? I'm thinking that yes, we can, because we are directly the one who are affected and the one who can affect. Let's just think about it. I'm going again to the fact to the taxation. We paid the taxes, and the taxes go to the budget of the European Union, and then goes to help countries like Greece and so on. And yes, to sustain, as my colleague said, knowing why for example, our taxes will grow because in the European is this crisis, and willing to sustain this policy to say yes, I accept to pay more taxes from my income, more for everything I buy, because I know this money will help the other members who are in need, and then the level of the whole European Union will grow again, to say so. This is how we can help because we are the main members of the European Union. And by everything we buy and pay, we do that budget. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, in relation to the question, I believe we're doing, so much as it is. I mean, we're paying so much in terms of taxes and VAT. What can we do more? I mean, we've already bailed 2 countries, Ireland and Portugal. I mean, what can we do more? I mean, we're paying a lot of money, and our taxes, VATs, they go up every year. It's frankly, and I agree with your point, with the point of EU being far out from the local citizens. I mean, the local citizens, they don't really feel the direct impact, of the EU. And, most local people, they don't really care about the crisis as such. So I just don't understand what we can do more. I mean, I feel we've done enough already.
Well, actually, I'd like to answer you. I don't believe that you can explain any country, despite the fact how wealthy it might be, like Germany or others, that the people will have to pay more and more to help countries like Greece or others when they don't manage to help themselves. Then, when they're not able to have or to develop a functioning administration, etc. So I think this is too much asked from the people, and they do have, in each country, they do have their own problems. So they won't say, "Oh yeah, I see that Italians, which such a guy like Berlusconi as a leader, in parentheses, that we will help them because they are not able to manage their own country." First, and second, I like to ask. I mean, my point was about identity and identification of the people. I'd like to ask the people here from each country, how many people in your countries do you think identify with Europe? That would be interesting.
I don't know. I think each person here should answer to himself how many of us see each other like Romanians, in my case, or European Union citizen. But as to conclude, I agree with my colleague Maria. I like more the word of not segregation and always divided European Union. I think that the European Union, when they accept members like Greece, say, right? They also accept not only the good parts of a new member, but only the problems that a member came with. And I like Maria's opinion that we should talk more about being together and help each other, all the states in the European Union. That's true as well. Resources and help is limited.
So thank you very much for joining us for our latest public discussion. I hope that you'll stay with us for some more refreshments downstairs. We're also carrying on the discussion on our Facebook group, and I believe that President Constantinescu would like to say something.
I'm very happy to be here surrounded by representative of young generation, because I participate directly in last 20 years in different think tanks coming from civil society, and after I president, after again from civic society to the project of enlargement European Union. I remember in the second year of my term in administration, I was invited in Washington for a discussion to Council of FIM and World Bank. In that time, Romania was in a catastrophic situation. All banks was in failure, economy was completely destroyed, or oligarch type building before. And I said, you don't have a correct perspective about countries, because the countries is not commercial company. You considered countries like commercial company. And if I said, I continue, if Romania is a commercial company, must be declared in failure, divided and sell. But my country is not a commercial company. It's a representative, a nation, representative of force, of mentality, represent a history, or old history. And if I am renounced at attitude like in Argentine, and in 2 years we exceeded, and we obtaining the result of very, very hard reforms. Reforms paid by the people. Because I agree to pay political price, not running for a second term in administration, because my opinion was if people paid the very, very hard social price, it's necessary politician to pay also political price. But grow up, realized in my last term in administration, continue until today. Why? Because the people want to be people, not government or only government. Accepted to pay a hard price because they want to be integrated in European Union, have confidence in the European Union, and now accept to pay a price for integration in Schengen zone or in Eurozone. But the second idea, I am very interested in a book, and I find the type of book, in a book which presented European Union founders, enlargement European Union like a history of crisis, not a history of different success. No, because this was reality. European Union history was a history of crisis. Crisis of coal, crisis of steel, crisis of agriculture, of free market economy, and last on the Schengen zone of free access, and finally, at the end, Euro crisis. It is not the last, because this is a force of the project of European Union. It's prepared for crisis. Why? Because it's not was different. Is a different project in comparison with United States project. Prepared like a melting pot, a single ideology, capitalism, a single language, English, a single religion, Protestant, dominated Protestant, and find the pride to be Americans. And all the world follow the model of American democracy, American market economy. European Union is a completely different project. It was a project, this project follow a most dangerous disaster in all history of mankind, Second World War. This is alternative. Alternative of a political European Union is a war. Imagine it, non-existence of new relation type between France and Germany. And the same history like after First World War. Imagine it, what happened between Greece and Turkey without of existence of NATO or European Union related with NATO. Imagine it, what happened in my, I have experience direct in what happened at the fall of communist regime in Soviet Union and in Central Southeastern Europe. In my country also. Can you imagine it? Bloody confrontation between Romanians and Hungarian minority in Romania. Can you imagine a war between Romanians and Hungarians? Like what happened in Balkans and in other part. And because all totalitarian regime was able only to froze the conflict, don't resolve. 1 month before Romanian revolution, the party and government presented a successful phase. All was perfect. All was perfect in United Soviet. All was perfect between, I met recently writers, the woman presented a book about cannibalism in Republic of Moldavia in the time when Stalin decided to sell grains in Germany to demonstrate the successful of Russian, Soviet Union agriculture. This is our advantage. We can debate openly about the crisis and to find solution. It's also from economical point of view. What is alternative? Oligarch system. And we have the model. For Romania, maybe, Romania 7 years after fall of communist regime by a bloody revolution, where was killed 3,000 people, or was grave injured 3,000 other people, well, follow 7 years when Romania follow Soviet Union system, oligarch system, building the oligarch system. And also imaginate Belarus. Difference between Belarus and Poland, maybe. The fall of communists was in the same times, in Poland and in Belarus, neighboring countries. We have now in Belarus a criminal regime, imprisoned people and intellectual and young people who have courage to protest. And is an economical disaster because all in an oligarch system can obtain few timers successful or a new strategy and vision. And your duty is do not permit a bureaucratization of the project. We need to keep ethos of the project. Because for this, because coming back, why? Because it's important to have a real debate. At the same time, in my opinion, it's very dangerous to use political correct or European conform debate. If we don't talk about the reality and use the terms correctly, politically correct, is the same error. But in same times, with other different danger, because democracy is not a perfect system. Capitalism is not a perfect system, and especially democracy is not perfect. System. Why? Because each generation must to work to achieve new projects. What is for me dangerous? Euro? No. I consider this debate necessary because it's necessary to change mentality. It's very interesting when presented 2,000 years ago. I met in each confrontation with European Union in that times. Idea is very dangerous to admit Central Eastern country, former communist country. I'm confident in this, and I hope Institute for Cultural Diplomacy is very well situated in this action for a new project for a new European Union.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your concluding remarks. I think they really summarise the whole debate that we had here today. Once again, thank you very much for joining in, and maybe we could give a round of applause.
Talking about a revolution, it sounds like a whisper. And finally the tables are starting to turn. We're talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn. We're talking about a revolution, oh no. Talking about a revolution, oh no. Talking about a revolution, oh.